Good morning. This is Citizens Gone Wild. I'm Dr. George, and we're going to talk about a bunch of things that have shown up in the newspaper lately. The first thing is very discouraging, and there's a headline here that says that the annual drug overdose deaths top 100,000. The most amazing thing about this is it keeps going up and up and up. And every time it goes up again and it's reported on, people say, well, it can't go up anymore, but it can. I have nothing much to say about this except that it's a tragedy and that no one seems to know what to do with it. No one seems to know why these people are in such despair. It's true that the drug companies played a major role here, but they're no longer in control. And yet the number of people who are overdosing, this is not the number of people who are taking drugs. This is the number of people that are overdosing. And we have various devices now that can stop a person from dying for an overdose if they're caught in time. But no one has yet found a way to stop people from taking drugs to begin with. If you have any ideas, send them into your senator or congressman. There's also a question of affirmative action. And the Supreme Court is going to look into this. The original idea of affirmative action was that there were people in this country, African Americans, who had suffered a great deal in the past, slavery, the aftermath of slavery, and the lingering aftermaths of oppression and bigotry. And that we should give them a foot up, so to speak. You can't just, as President Johnson say, go to someone who's been hobbled for most of their lives and say, all right, the race starts in 5 minutes. So we're going to help these people who have been hobbled in the past. And we've been doing that now for years and years. The problem seems to be that African Americans are not doing well enough. And we'd like to know why. Meanwhile, we have the question of affirmative action. Should we continue to give a leg up when a Black person wants to go to college or get a job or get a scholarship? We've expanded affirmative action something fierce. We now count people who have just arrived from Africa, and there are a lot of those people, although it's not clear to most of us why the hell they should be getting a leg up. We couldn't have harmed them. They were there and we were here. In addition, we have a whole new category of people, brown people they are called now, who just arrived in this country who are also getting the benefits of affirmative action. If that wasn't enough to confuse people, we also have people, basically Asians, who are doing extraordinarily well and claim that they are being discriminated against, in that they do so well that more of them should be in the top colleges like Harvard, and they're not. So they're angry, and they probably should be. But no one knows an answer to this. If you do know how to solve this problem, then you should definitely get in touch with me or someone else out there. This problem is not going to go away. And the main problem, as I see it, is that we don't want to get into the question of what causes some groups to do better than others. Is it a work ethic, or is there something intrinsic in there? Was something done to the slaves in America? Is something being done to Black people in Africa that promotes this gap between how Asians do and white people do and brown people do and Black people do? And no one has the guts, quite rightly, to get into this. So we're just going to keep nibbling at the edges. More and more, I think that we don't, when we encounter problems, we don't so much solve them as we get tired of them. And then we go on after a while to the next problem that we also don't solve. One of those things that's cropped up lately is critical race theory. Critical race theory is fundamentally the idea that America is fundamentally and irretrievably sinful. What is the sin? The sin is racism, starting with slavery and into this modern era. One of the problems is that most people in the country don't think that critical race theory is a legitimate theory. And they think that we've done a great deal, and from now on, everyone should be treated the same, and no group should have their reputation besmirched by constantly harping on the question of racism. This issue exploded in the Virginia race, where a lot of people think that the person who won because he said he was against critical race theory, and the other candidate, the Democrat, said he didn't believe it. They taught critical race theory. Well, they do. They absolutely do. They may not put the words critical race theory or CRT, I'm sorry, on that label on the book, on the paper, on the talk, but there is conference after conference after conference. There's talk after talk after talk. The unions issue endless papers, endless pamphlets, endless conferences, where in effect they say this country is irretrievably racist and we must act with vigor to rip it out. Unless the Democrats get a grip on this, I don't know how, but unless the Democrats get a grip on this, they could end up losing a lot of elections. And believe me, it won't help if they say there's no CRT here. It is. It's all over the damn place. And everyone knows it's all over the damn place. Now, some people think that people like me are a little too worried, but I don't know. Here's another article. They go on endlessly. Though fortunately for you, I won't go on endlessly. And it basically says that they define it, this person defines CRT as the idea that racism is the defining feature of America. I don't know very many Americans other than some, and not that many really, African Americans who believe that. The problem is that the elite keep going on in that direction. Here's the American Medical Association recently published a guide to language, narrative, and concept, including recommendations to replace the term disadvantage with historically and intentionally excluded, social problems with social injustice, and vulnerable with oppressed. It is truly Orwellian. Most Americans are horrified by this nonsense, and they certainly will not vote for people who don't speak out against it. The Democrats, meanwhile, of course, are fairly sane party, but they too can't come out against this idea that slavery and racism is the defining feature of America, because if they do, they will lose a lot of the people in the party, the so-called squad or the progressives, which will spend a lot of time yelling at them instead of the Republicans. There are a number of areas that drive most people in this country insane, and I think I'm with them. I like being with the insane. For example, the idea of citizenship. The idea of citizenship used to be, people used to be proud as punch that they were Americans, that they could say, I am an American citizen. Don't you dare do this or that to me. But lately, the elite, the much disliked elite, I think, no longer sees that much of a difference between being a citizen of America and being a citizen of the world, or as they often call it, a global citizen. And if you clicked on the headquarters of the AFT, one of the big teachers unions, you would find this idea that they are proud of being a global citizen, and they want the teachers to teach their children about being a global citizen, something that perhaps many Americans did not know was going on in their classroom for their children. And you have people in New York State, for example, they recently gave out money to people who were not citizens to help them get through the pandemic. I mean, in a way, that's a nice thing to do, but most Americans believe that being a citizen should mean something. And one of the things it should mean is that unless you're a citizen, you don't get money, especially if you're in the country illegally. To show you how little the elites care about this, care about the country. Look at this. U.S. investments aid China in its bid for chip dominance. U.S. investments aid China in its bid for chip dominance. Obviously, making chips is very, very important for the future of the world, for the future of the United States and China. And whoever wins the chip race will remain on top. Our own companies are helping build up the chip making ability of China. We're supposed to be in competition with China. And if they get ahead of us, we'll be in trouble. Chips are the future. They are putting up money to help China do better with chip manufacturing. Our own companies are dealing with the people in China and helping them do better with chips. It's just an incredible situation. I mean, it just boggles the mind. It would be as if during the Cold War, American investors would invest in Russia so that Russia can make better chips, or they would have Intel put in a plant or invest in money in a chip making plant in Russia. It seems incredible. All of these changes have happened at warp speed, or leaving a lot of people dizzy. If you're not dizzy, you're not paying attention. This used to be called being a traitor. Now, let's talk about something else. We just had Veterans Day and Veterans Day Parade. And there's a story here about a 93-year-old veteran of World War II. There aren't that many left, about 5,000 in New York City. And the man here, Mr. Levine, did not go in the parade. He's a little old for that. He's 93. But he did stay home, and people visited him. They came and brought him cakes and various little things. I'm just going to read this straight. A few minutes later, there was another rustling. Mr. Levine went to the door and stopped. No, wait a minute. To grab a ball cap from a hook. It said World War II veteran. It said proudly served. Outside was a mother on inline skates and twin 8-year-olds on scooters. The girl had made a flag of pink, white, and turquoise tissue paper and affixed it to a paper towel tube and hung it from the gate post. We are so, so grateful, the mother said. My grandfather was in Auschwitz. Her voice tightened and sped up. My father was born in a displaced person camp, and so she gestured to her children. Without you, none of this would have been possible. She began to weep. A droplet formed at the end of Mr. Levine's nose. He squinted, shook the hands of Miss Clark and her children, posed for a picture with them, and went back inside. My eyes water sometimes, he said.